Urban Hymns is the third studio album by English alternative rock band The Verve, released on September 29, 1997 on Hut Records. It earned nearly unanimous critical praise upon its release, and went on to become the band's best-selling release and one of the biggest-selling albums of the year. As of 2015, Urban Hymns is ranked the 17th best-selling album in UK chart history and has sold over 10 million copies worldwide. The album features the hit singles Sweet Symphony, Lucky Man, and The Drugs Don't Work. The critical and commercial success of the album saw the band win 2 Brit Awards in 1998, a Euro-winning Best British Group, and appear on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine in March 1999. Sweet Symphony was nominated for the Grammy Award for Best Rock Song. Background: The Verve had previously released 2 albums, A Storm in Heaven in 1993 and A Northern Soul in 1995. The band had only achieved moderate commercial success up to that point, and the band split shortly after their second album due to internal conflicts. Vocalist Richard Ashcroft quickly reformed the group, with Simon Tong, an old friend of the band, on guitar. However, Ashcroft realized Nick McCabe's unique guitar style was required to complete the true Verve unit and later asked him to return. Tong also remained, adding more guitar and keyboard organ textures, making them a 5-piece band and expanding their sound. The 4-piece had already recorded several tracks for the album with Youth as producer, but once McCabe returned they re-recorded several tracks and changed producers to Chris Potter. McCabe said that in the next 7 months of work, the key tracks were recorded from scratch, but some of them were already there. The cover photo was taken in Richmond Park, London. Music: The Verve were known for their music's complex, immersive sonic textures. Sweet Symphony was a hit on both sides of the Atlantic, and remains the band's most well-known song. The Drugs Don't Work, the band's only #1 single in the UK, became a concert staple for jam bands and other groups. The rest of the album alternated between wistful ballads like Sonnet, and Space and Time, spacey grooves like Catching the Butterfly, and The Rolling People, and all-out rockers like The Pounding Come On. The hidden track Deep Freeze has strong ambient influences that set it apart from the rest of the tracks in terms of composition and overall mood. Release and reception: the album received nearly unanimous critical praise upon its release, with Melody Maker naming Urban Hymns as the #1 album of 1997 in its year-end list. Urban Hymns debuted at number 63 on the Billboard 200, becoming the first album by the group to chart in the US. The album ultimately peaked at number 23, and is the group's best-selling album in the US with over 1.3 million copies sold. The album was certified platinum by the RIAA on April 4, 1998. The album spent 12 weeks at the top of the UK Albums Chart, with a total of 124 weeks on the chart. Legacy: in the years following its release, Urban Hymns received much acclaim. In 1998, it won Best British Album at the Brit Awards. It was also shortlisted for the Mercury Prize, and Q magazine readers voted it the 18th greatest album of all time. The magazine placed it at the same position in 2001. In 2006, its editors voted it the 16th greatest album of all time. The Verve were awarded with the first ever Q Classic Album Award for this album at the 2007 Q Awards. In a 2008 poll, Urban Hymns was ranked as the 10th best British album of all time. It was also nominated for Best British Album of the Last 30 Years at the Brits 2010 but lost to Oasis's Morning Glory. Track listing: all songs written by Richard Ashcroft, except where noted. International version equals, Sweet Symphony Euro 558, Sonnet Euro 421, The Rolling People Euro 701, The Drugs Don't Work Euro 505, Catching the Butterfly Euro 626, Neon Wilderness Euro 237, Space and Time Euro 536, Weeping Willow Euro 449, Lucky Man Euro 453, One Day Euro 503, This Time Euro 350, Velvet Morning Euro 457, Come On Euro 1515, Come On Euro, Silence Euro, Deep Freeze Euro. Japanese version equals, Sweet Symphony Euro 558, Sonnet a Euro 421, The Rolling People a Euro 701, The Drugs Don't Work a Euro 505, Catching the Butterfly a Euro 626, Neon Wilderness a Euro 237, Space and Time a Euro 536, Weeping Willow a Euro 449, Lucky Man a Euro 453, One Day a Euro 503, This Time a Euro 350, Velvet Morning a Euro 457, Lord I Guess I'll Never Know a Euro 452, Come On a Euro 638, Deep Freeze a Euro 214. B-sides, Lord I Guess I'll Never Know, Country Song, So Sister, Echo Bass, Three Steps, The Crab, Stamped, Never Wanna See You Cry, History, MSG, The Longest Day. Other songs which did not make the cut include, A Song for the Lovers, New York, Common People, This Could Be My Moment, Monte Carlo. All of these 5 songs, however, would later be released. The first 3 as solo singles by Ashcroft, and the latter 2 on the band's compilation album, This Is Music, the singles 92 a Euro 98. Sales and certifications. Chart positions. Album singles Personnel. The Verve Richard Ashcroft a Euro vocals, guitar, Nick McCabe a Euro lead guitar, Simon Jones a Euro bass guitar, Peter Salisbury a Euro drums, Simon Tong a Euro guitar, keyboards. Youth a Euro producer, Chris Potter a Euro producer, engineer, mixing, recording, The Verve a Euro producer, Liam Gallagher a Euro backing vocals, claps, Mel Wesson a Euro programming, Paul Anthony Taylor a Euro programming, Will Malone a Euro conductor, string arrangements, Gareth Ashton a Euro assistant engineer, Lorraine Francis a Euro assistant engineer, Jan Kybert a Euro assistant engineer, Brian Cannon a Euro director, design, sleeve art, Martin Cotherell a Euro design assistant, Matthew Sankey a Euro design assistant, Michael Spencer Jones a Euro photography, John Hersley a Euro photography, Chris Floyd a Euro photography. See also, List of best-selling albums in the United Kingdom. References. External links, Urban Hymns at YouTube.